Good morning. This is Teresa Pivick from MMB, Enterprise Human Resources, and I am excited to offer this WebEx training for you today on how to run and process screening in recruiting solutions. It is truly my favorite topic. I've spent the last few years working diligently at this, and so I'm excited I know you've had some of this training in the two-day training, but I think it's a good idea for us to take a look at this again and make sure that we understand what the steps are to do screening. So screening is required for every job opening, and I am going to show you two scenarios today. The first scenario is going to be a job posting that only includes the one required question. And then the second job I'm going to show you, job opening, will have multiple screening questions, and I will walk you through how to process that in the system. So what I've done today is I'm working in our testing environment, and I'm hopeful that things will run smoothly, although we have staff that continue to work in the system, and there's always potential for some glitches. But I will, what I have here is all made up information. Nothing is confidential information. I am using a health department as my example. So thank you, Department of Health, for lending that to me. If you have questions throughout the presentation, please submit them to chat and to the host, which is me, Teresa. So I will go ahead and get started. I created my first example is a job opening, 1422 as a chemist aide. And I'm just going to click into my job opening. And I've staged all the information in here. I've created the job opening, I've created the posting, and I've even had applicants apply. So the first place I want to send you to is the details section, which is where you create your job opening. And again, some of this is going to be a repeat from if you were participating or watched the WebEx that Kirsten did on how to post a job. So where we're going to go is we're going to focus again on processing screening. So I'm going to send you to, or we're going to walk to Qualifications tab in the Manage Job Opening. And as you recall, in the first pieces here, the state is not currently using. So we will go directly down to the bottom, and screening questions is where every job opening requires to add this screening question. And to look it up, you use the icon, the lookup icon here, magnifying glass. Again, this is our testing environment, so these are not the questions that we have in production. But it is labeled the same, all applicants, and you can click on any of these in the row. All applicants then will place it in the question. And what I recommend doing next is just to take a look. You can click on the View Answers link, and by clicking that on, it will show you that you have the correct question. Here's the question. All the information I provided to apply to this job is true, complete, and accurate. And then verify that there is a correct answer checked and that there are points applied. So this is all defaulted in for you, and there should be nothing that you need to do, but go ahead and take a peek and make sure that it has the correct answer checked of yes, and that there are 10 default points in there for you. Return. And if you made a mistake and loaded the wrong question, you can delete it and then go to Add Screening Question again. And the reason that this required question is here for us is to help load in RSVs, which really has nothing to do with screening questions. But the RSVs, to be able to pull that data in, was a customization that we had to make, and this was the process that one of our developers worked on in order for us to have a view of RSV status in our applicant list. So this is really critical to remember. Always include a screening question. If you're not going to use other screening questions, this is the process you need to follow when you create a job opening. Make sure this question is in every job opening. Great. I'm going to click Save and go back up to Screening Options, which is the next step. So I added the screening questions. Now I need to designate what screening level it's going into. And I think I'll just take a moment to walk through the screening levels again. And we have this information has been provided in the HR hiring toolbox, where you have all the information about what the functionality of these 4 different levels do. So I think we'll just do a quick review of them. Oops, I'm seeing 2 preliminaries. That's not good. Oh, yeah. I was messing around in here and probably accidentally added too many. I'm just going to take this one out. And I'm going to add this back in. Only I don't need this, but I just wanted to be able to talk about these 4 screening levels. So the pre-qualification screening level is the level that would present the question before the applicant completes the application. And that is not, you need to be careful about using that question because it will prevent applicants from applying. And I would encourage you to use that for eligibility purposes. For example, if you were posting an internal only to your agency and a screening question that you wanted to ask was, do you work for this agency? And so it would prevent other state employees who were not eligible to apply, it would block them from applying. So they would get a notice if they click the button, no, I'm not with the state agency. They would get an automatic notice saying you're not eligible for this position, and that would be the end of their application, and there would be no application submitted. So please be very careful with that. You may want to just consider not using that in the very beginning while we get used to the system. So online screening is for minimum qualification questions, and the thing that's different here from the preliminary screening is that it allows them to complete their application, but it would give them a notice, give them notification that they did or that they didn't meet the minimum qualifications. So if they checked an answer that was no or incorrect, that they didn't meet the minimum qualifications based on the questions you asked, they would get immediate notification. And again, I would just caution you about using these 2 levels, 1 and 2, when you begin posting jobs, at least initially. Preliminary is where the 1 required screening question will go. That is a change. We have been talking all along about placing it in final. The reason we need to change it is that the preliminary is for minimum qualification screening, and final is only for preferred. And the difference is with the minimum qualification screening, it either passes or fails based on a percentage of the correct answers. The final we have configured to rank. So that means that no one will pass or fail. Everyone will be given a score, given a percentage, and then be ranked on how they answered questions. So just remember the first 3 levels are sort of a pass or fail, and the final level 4 is a ranking, meaning it does not knock anyone out of the process or does not pass or fail anyone. All the applicants will stay in, but then would be ranked based on their score. So what I'm recommending, or what we're doing at this point is telling you about basic screening. And the level 4 final screening is for preferred, and that will be phase 2, and we will provide additional instruction and training early into next year. So I'm going to go ahead, and this is the process for using the only one required screening is I'm going to take this out. Pre-qualification, I'm going to take out online screening, and I'm going to remove final. So preliminary is the only place that I want to put a question. And when I select the preliminary, it defaults in screening option descriptions, it defaults in scoring definitions, and these are all set up, configured to make the process easy for you. So do not make any changes. When you start to make changes to these things, then the screening will not run as intended. So please, we're passing and failing based on a percentage. With when the applicants answer the correct question or correct answer, they receive 100 points. If they check the wrong answer, then they receive 0. So here is where you need to find the screening questions. All of the general requirements, these are information that will be collected on the application. However, none of this is required. So you may get some information from some applicants, and other applicants may not give you information. And so at this time, we're saying do not do any screening on minimum qualifications for these things. So you'll go directly to the bottom. The screening question is the one I uploaded, all applicants. And using screening is the box you need to check. Required, a box you need to check. And here you can see that there's 10 points that defaulted in. If you find the link here, edit details, you can look and again see your question, see yes as the correct answer, and 10 points assigned, and no. It does allow you to change these points. I would just recommend, again, leave them alone. The system will do what you need to do, and it makes it a lot easier on you. If you do change the points, it really has no impact because we have the system configured to whatever point you put in there. If they check the correct answer, it turns it into a percentage. If they checked yes, they'll get 100%, whether it says 1 point or 100 points. So the points are really not relevant, but you do need to have a number in there. And my recommendation is just leave the defaults. Okay. Let's go back in here. I have Kirsten in the room, and she's telling me, Teresa, you forgot to remind them about the send letter as an email when results are applied. And Kirsten, feel free to jump in. It's not a problem. So if you want a letter sent when the results are applied in screening, you can check this box. Initially, if I was posting jobs, I would leave it unchecked just because I would want to really see for these initial postings that we're getting out how it's working before any immediate notification is sent. And then after you get comfortable with the system and how it's working, then start using this. And I'm going to save. Okay, and you know, for this example, I'm showing all this would happen before you opened your job posting. I've already had applicants apply, and you would not be doing any of this changing in the system on this details page while you had applicants applying. But I just wanted to show you again how you set it up with the one required question in a job opening. Okay, so now I'm going to navigate to my applicants. And as you can see here, I have 6 applicants that applied. I have applicant what fun what 2 times, so we get to watch how that duplicate app gets handled when we process screening. There is a reviewed bucket, and there are some things you could do in there if you want. What I'm going to show you, though, today is from the applied, I'm going to show running screening. And we'll navigate to the applicant screening tab. And steps that you've probably already seen in training is you're going to, for running screening, select preliminary. And as you recall, I eliminated all of the other 3 levels, and it just makes it a lot easier to manage. So select preliminary, select go, select process monitor. As Kirsten likes to say, move to the right. And in this, it pulls up a new screen. Here you need to watch for the run status to change to processed, and we'll hit refresh and be patient. Click and wait. And we have success. So we do not need to be in this tab any longer. Close the window, and it returns us to where we were before. And what we need to see now is our screening results. And to get the screening results link here, we need to hit the refresh. And magically, we now have screening results to view. So my screening results are on the 5 people. The duplicate they did not do twice. It knows which one is the most recent application to screen on. That's a nice feature. Here I had someone fail. What I would recommend is to take a look at initially, doing some spot checking to see, well, did my screening work? And the way to do that is I'll check one of the 100% and one of the 0. I only had 1 question, and so the correct answer, everyone scored 100, and the wrong answer, they scored 0%. So I'm just going to look at my first applicant here and click on the score, and it brings up this view, and you can see the screening points that they received, their screening status, and down below there's another link for view questionnaire results. And this is where you will be able to get another view of the question that was asked and the answers and how they responded to it. So to me, this looks like screening ran the way I intended it to. Click the link to return to previous page again. And now I'm going to take a look at the individual that scored 0. Did that function the way that I hoped it would? Here I can see it. They failed. They got 0. Review questionnaire results. Here's the question, and they answered no. So apparently they do not want to be truthful and honest, so they failed the screening on this one. I highly doubt that there'll be anyone selecting no, but again, the purpose for this screening question really is so that we can populate this RSV status. So as you can see, it did place them at the top. If they're not at the top, you can always click any of these headings, titles, and it will sort them accordingly. So we have the system configured that it would place them on top so you can see them. So this is the only place where you can see the RSV status is in the screening results. So it is very important that you add the question so we can see this RSV status and meet our obligations under statute to offer interviews. Okay. Now I'm going to navigate back to my applicant tab. And as you can see, I just ran screening and nothing has happened. It has not moved them. It will not move them out of the applied bucket until we apply screening. And so to do that, I'm going to go back to the applicant screening and click on screening results. And here's where I apply results. And a word of caution, once you apply results, you cannot make any changes. So you want to be careful that you're feeling comfortable with the results before applying. So I'm going to apply, and now I will not be able to make any further changes to the screening. And it populates this or presents this warning, and it gives you that same information. Are you sure? And yep, I'm sure. Click OK. And now when I go back to my applicant list, I will now see that my duplicate application stayed and applied. My screen that passed stays in the moves to the screening bucket, and the one applicant that said no is now in reject. And if I would have checked that notification, that checkbox that Kirsten reminded me about on the job, this applicant would automatically then be sent a notice telling them that they didn't meet the requirements, the minimum requirements, and give them the notice of appeal rights. These applicants now, you can do whatever you want with them as far as routing them to a hiring manager. You can then add your hiring manager to the job opening, and they can have a similar view, or routing them and they can access the applicants via that interview activity routing link in self-service. Okay. So again, just for every job posting, this is the process that you'll need to do to run screening in Recruiting Solutions. And now I will go to an example of multiple screening questions. We'll walk through that example. So I'm going to go back to Recruiting Home. And I like the Browse Job Opening link personally because it brings me my open jobs. That's what I have it filtered at. So I can easily find my next example of my open job, which is Customer Services Specialist. And I have 5 people who have applied. I should go to details so you can see what I've done for setting up the screening in the job opening, navigating to the qualifications tab. Again, the state is not using screening in this section, top part. Here is where I added my screening questions. Of course, the one required, and I have added typing, basic math, and Excel. And the typing skills is an open-ended text box question, and so you will need to enter evaluators to be able to enter a score for them. And to do that, there's a search icon, and it will give you the individuals in your department to search from. If recruiters can add scores, and I'll show you how to do that later in the process, but if you don't, you can send this, you can be the evaluator as the recruiter. And that's the example I will be showing you today, is I've added myself, well in this case it's Patricia, as the recruiter and also the evaluator of an open-ended question. But you can also send it to your hiring manager or to a hiring team. And the nice thing about that is that they will not see applicant name, and they will be able to evaluate without knowing who the candidates are. Okay. So after the qualifications tab and adding the screening questions, you move to the screening options tab. And here's, again, the decision about, well, where do I want to place those questions in these screening levels? And so for each question, you would only select one screening level that they would go into. You would never see the screening question asked in multiple levels. So pre-qualification, I've decided that I'm not going to be using that feature or online screening. I'm just going to stay away from those two just till I get more comfortable with how the system is working. I don't want to knock anybody out, prevent them, block them from applying, and I do not want to give anybody some immediate notice that they didn't meet the minimum qualifications from the get-go. That's a decision that you can make, but I want to just caution you that, you know, once the notices are sent or once they're blocked from applying, then you have no control over that. So working with the preliminary, I think, is your best option to begin with. So I'm going to remove the pre-qualification screening level. I'm going to be removing the online screening level. And I'm going to be removing the final because that does ranking, not minimum qualification screening. So in my preliminary, I'm not going to touch any of the defaults that are brought in, screening options description, assigned points. This is all defaulted in to make the screening process easy for you to run. And again, a word of caution, these general requirements are brought in from the application, and if you use them in screening, it is not every applicant will have answered these questions. So please do not use them for purposes of minimum qualification screening. At the bottom is always my screening questions. These are the 4 that I've added. I did go ahead and I already checked the boxes. Use in screening and required, and you can see the points. I can change them if I wanted to here. I can verify that the correct answer is selected. This is all placed by admin, recruiter admin here at MMB. So all of this default is there for you and just to make things easier for you. I don't recommend, I think 10 is a good number, but you could put 1 point in there, you could put 5 points in there, you could put 100 points in there. Because it's based on a percentage, all it's looking for is the correct answer, and then it's going to say if that was correct, it's going to give you a percentage. So in this case, as long as you leave the defaults in place, the kind of points that you put in there, they do not matter, and I recommend you just leave them at 10. Okay.
Teresa, would you be able to show us how to find the questions that you used in your example?
So I showed it the first one, but I can go back again. In the qualifications, when you load the questions, it's the magnifying glass. And the list that you'll have in production is much larger than this, but you can search by question ID, question code, or what you will most likely need to do, because you won't know those, is by description. So if I needed to find the typing question, and if this was a very, very long list, and you couldn't see it by just scrolling through, you could put in the keyword typing and click lookup. Oh, I have to, oops. There we go. Don't know. Yeah, so, you know, if we're used to semaphore, you know how you need to have capital. So there we go. So typing in the keyword typing found the question. I have created or placed a report on the extranet. It replaced the former screening questions library report and is now accurate information of what is in production right now. And I was going to show you that at the end of the presentation of how to find that. Okay? I'm going to make one change because I don't want to have to evaluate. I'm going to remove my open-ended question. I don't want to make it required. Okay, so now I'm going to go back to the applicants. And all of that setting up would happen, of course, before applicants applied. Very important. You should not make any changes to screening questions after the job is posted. If you need to make changes to screening questions after the job is posted, you will need to repost because those questions need to be answered by all applicants. And if a change is made, then the ones that have already applied will not have that opportunity. So I have my 5 applicants, and I'm going to go to applicant screening and run screening by, oh, you know what, actually I jumped ahead. I remembered I wanted to show you how you would answer those open-ended questions. And there's an easy way to do that. Since I'm the recruiter, I want to do the scoring. If you sent them off to others to score, this is a way you could check and look as well to see whether they had completed the scoring. So I would go to Select All and Group Actions, Recruiter Actions, Edit Application Details, and View Questionnaire. And here I can see that the questions and the answers and how they've answered them. And what I'm looking for is where can I put the points for, in this case, it was enter in the space below how many words per minute you can type. And if my requirement was they need to type at least 45 words per minute, then I could say they score 10 points. If the answer that they had was 35, I would put 0 points here. So again, this is pass and fail. By selecting the group of applicants, I can scroll through and close. This will save and return. I can go through all of them by clicking Next and doing the same thing. Change my, and View Questionnaire. So I'm not going to do all of them. That's why I removed that as a required question. And I'm going to return back to my applicant list and applicant screening. And to run screening, we look for the preliminary, go, and process monitor. It brings up a new screen. You can see I've run screening one time before in practicing. Let me hit refresh and wait for the success to show here. we have it. I'm going to X out. Click the refresh so I can see my screening results. And there's my tab. And let's see how people did. Okay, so I have 3 that passed and 2 that failed. And again, because I ran screening, I can now see this RSV status column. And it defaults all of those to the top. So I'm going to check one of my 100% and I'm going to check one of my 67% to see did the screening I had work. View questionnaire results gets me the detail. Here's the question and how they answered. The question and how they answered. The question. So it looks like they all checked yes for these. They all had the correct answer. They scored 30. 30 was 100%. They passed. That looks good. Now I'm going to see what happened to one of the ones that didn't pass and make sure that it worked the way I intended. Here are my questions, and it looks like they checked no for can you perform basic math. So that's why they didn't meet the minimum requirements and therefore failed. So I feel comfortable with the results. I'm going to go ahead and apply them. And I get the warning, are you sure? I'm sure. And because I didn't check the box that said they would get notification when I process screening, I will need to send out notifications to them of their results. I'm going to navigate back to applicants to see what happened to them in the buckets. So now my 5 have moved out of the applied. I've got the 2 that failed are in reject, and the 3 that passed are in screening. And here's where I could send notifications to them. And the screening I could route to a hiring manager. Okay. So that's all I have to show in the 2 examples. Now we've got about 20 minutes if we want to start addressing questions. You want to read them for me, Barb, and then I'll...
We have one question already. It said in the screening example provided it only included yes and no questions. How would screening work with the checkbox questions for which there's multiple correct answers? Would the percentage need to pass fields need to be adjusted for those types of questions? Or can you still leave the default points?
Good question.
That last part was my add-on.
So for a multiple choice question, you have, and all of the answers are correct except for one, because that's how we loaded them in the system. So it could be that you can qualify via 3 or 4 different ways. And you would be putting, they're all listed as the correct answer. And so anybody that would check any of those 3 answers would then get, in essence, 100%.
Okay, another question. Why do the number of applicants in the buckets not match the applicants shown?
Can they talk about that?
Yep.
Personalized.
I'm not sure what the question is. The number.
So when you're in all, you should see 5. Do you want to click through them, Teresa? So there's 5 in all.
Yep.
Now click on screen. There's 3 and reject. 2. Do you have something more to add here?
I do. So if you click sometimes when you've personalized your applicant tab, you might need to reset that on occasion. So to do that, you click the personalized link and you click delete settings and say delete and OK. And what that does, it just kind of refreshes your personalization. So anytime you click a header row to resort, you might lose the number of applicants. So to do that, you might need to do that process and refresh your screen. Or you can just double click on a bucket, click it a couple of times, and all of your applicants will show up.
Okay, somebody's saying go to the All tab, and then somebody else is saying it looks like it's working now. So I don't know if previously the numbers weren't
sometimes
were funny.
Yeah, if there are too many personalizations, sometimes they don't show. So you do have to click the All bucket to refresh your applicants.
Okay.
And then it will work.
Just wanted to acknowledge that some people had a different view. A question, if we don't check the box for automatically sending a letter, will we be able to electronically send the letters through the system later? So Teresa mentioned you could, and you would do that through send correspondence. So you would choose the people you're sending the letter to.
And if you're in reject, and these are all didn't meet the minimum qualifications, so the advantage to using screening is it does that automatically for you. And then a group action, applicant actions, and send correspondence.
And then you have your 3 options of the ways to send correspondence. There is a template in there you could use and view for reject. It's the second one down. And then you could preview the wording to make sure you have the right one.
Oh, I forgot.
Details, details. What you're really supposed to put in the subject is the job ID, the agency, and the job title.
Thanks, Barb. View and send or cancel. Okay. Are there any other questions?
Yes. Now, Teresa, you said you were going to show us this later, but so a question is related to that. Is MMB working on naming standards for the questions because we're finding them difficult to find in recruiting solutions?
So the naming convention is what it is in the system. Now what you could do from that spreadsheet that I placed on the extranet is to search by the long description, and since they are your questions, I would imagine you would know what some keywords are to search for them. I can go ahead and navigate there, the extranet, and show you. So here's MMB extranet. Human Resources, Temporary HR, Hiring Toolbox, Screening Question Resources, and this library has been updated. So I know that there was hope that there would just be a job class search, and it wouldn't work the way we needed it to in the system. So did my spreadsheet come up? There it is. So here's what you have available right now in the extranet. This coding, this smart coding here is their min-qual checkbox. So that's the MQCB. But if you know it's customer service, you could put in, customer, and you could do your finding in this spreadsheet. These are the questions. These are the answers. And then they have the question and answers together. So this report comes directly out of Recruiting Solutions. And so to get it up quick, I didn't do any modifications to it, but what you'll see on the question and answers is that for every question, it's duplicated to match answers. So when you see multiple applicants and then all these customer service, you can see that it's all the same code, which means it's one question, but it has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 answers. And scrolling over, you can see the answers here. So those are the answers that go with the select the type of customer service skills you have performed. So I'm hoping that having this Excel spreadsheet to search will be easier because you have available the long description, which you do not have available easily to search on in the Recruiting Solution System.
Teresa, there's a question here that asks, is there the general screening question that asks if the applicant is a current state of Minnesota employee?
There should be. We do have more questions, though, that are in the process of getting loaded for the go live date. So that's happening this weekend. So if it's not in this spreadsheet right now, there are about another 100 questions or so that are going to be loaded this weekend.
Can I dovetail on that? Why would you ask that question if only current state employees can see an internal posting?
Oh, state only?
Yes.
Not for agency. Okay. I tweaked the question in my mind.
Yeah. So there might not be.
If it's statewide, there's no need to ask that question. You would only post it internally. It wouldn't be seen by external applicants. Now, if you wanted it to be for the agency only, then you would want to ask, do you work for the agency listed on this posting? I believe is our question that we have in the library. And if it's not in the library on this, it's going to be loaded this weekend.
Okay, there's some other questions related to reviewing applicants. So one is, if we are only using the one required screening question, can you show us the process we would use to review the resumes and applications to determine if they meet the minimum qualifications?
Sure.
So you do it manually.
Yeah, I mean, you'd have to, so there's some tools that can help you. Go ahead and log out of here. And I'll just use this, we've got these use this group. So we've got these three applicants, and you can click on their application, but I think if you have a large pool, you would want to select all. Remember, recruiting actions or applicant? Recruiting, print. So here's where you find your print application details. Don't be afraid. It's not going to automatically just print them, but it could say view or print would be more accurate. So this is a nice feature. You still click print and it's not going to print anything yet, but it's going to run and give you a really nice view of the applications and any screening questions. So here's what you see, and there's the RSV, which is nice, yes. And you will just be basically reviewing them manually. Education, any licenses, whatever you required. Here's where you see screening questions, and if you just had the one question, it would show there. It's that open-ended question.
And then contact.
Here's general information, work experience. Oh, this is next person. I'm scrolling too fast for myself. So it's a nice because it gives you all of the applicants and you just can run through them like this. This is the advantage if you do have a lot of applicants by adding your hiring manager to the job opening. They would be able to have this kind of view as well, run that report and be able to scroll through all of the applications. So the feature you can use is, I've manually created an Excel spreadsheet where I track, who has what from the qualifications. Well, you can use the system. Okay. Close the window. Go back to my job opening. Find my download. And this is something then that you could at least minimally use the names. I know what I've done is when I had a recent recruitment, created this Excel spreadsheet myself, but here now you could edit this, and at least it downloads your applicant name list, and you could put your min-qual and do your screening, having this open in one window and the applications opened in the other, and make your documentation here. Or even send this to the hiring manager if they're doing that kind of review. They could be, you could create this for them and send it along, and then they could be entering in whether they, for those highly technical ones where you're having your managers help you review for min-quals.
Okay, another question, going back to that automated email to non-qualified candidates, can we make changes to that default letter to customize it to fit an agency need?
I don't think you can edit the...
You can't edit the default template that's in there. If you choose it, you can't edit it, but you could choose the option when you send correspondence to just paste in wording into the email body. So you could use your agency-specific template for the reject in that option, as Teresa is showing you on the screen.
Yeah, unfortunately it doesn't allow you to, I can't remember, it allows you to edit.
Yeah, and if there's any, something missing in a template that's crucial that you think we missed, make suggestions. But I can see where on some jobs there might be some additional wording you might want to put in there to help the applicant understand why they didn't meet the minimum quals specific to the job. Okay, some more questions. Is there an updated user guide available on the extranet yet? The most recent one?
Yeah, it is. We can send you by request the version where it's being tweaked for or reworked for accessibility. So we have a good rule of not placing documents out on our website unless they've been made accessible. And so that's been the challenge with this user guide and getting it ready to publish. But if you have a need and need it ASAP, you could contact your agency and applicant services rep and make that request. And you have it. So.
The quick reference guide for posting a job will be posted later today for your use on the extranet.
Oh, and I'm working on finalizing a quick reference guide that walks you through the basic screening process for that one required question. and loading that onto the system, onto the extranet as well.
There's a lot of questions, Tressa, so. Is there a general question about education background?
I don't remember. I would ask Jen Weingartner that question.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if I left it up. I think I closed it, didn't I? I know there are some education questions, but I don't think we did any general ones because our focus was on developing questions for the Ask Me 206 clerical, and then there were a few other jobs that we created questions for, but we're really relying on agencies to submit questions that they think they want to use.
Okay, here's a one. Does pressing Control F to find keywords work while scrolling through the applicants? Is that applicants? That's what the question says. Don't know.
Anybody here know that?
Anybody know that? I'm just wondering if they meant the applications, but applicants.
We'll have
Okay.
to get back on that one.
Can you address how the bargaining units will be notified when the jobs are posted? So the unions?
So it sounds like there was something set up in ResumeX that automatically sends notices, but there's not a feature in Recruiting Solutions to do that. There is a third-party integration that would be part of Phase 2 with that in mind. So at this time, it would be whatever process you would use to send the notice if it's required, sending it directly to the union. What are you doing, Barb?
What am I doing?
Yeah.
I was hoping that we would ask the unions to just set up job search alerts for jobs for their bargaining units so they would get them automatically and each agency wouldn't have to try to remember to send a separate email. And I know too at Revenue, our Ask Me folks are fine, they access our job openings all the time so we don't have to send them anything separately. I feel like the only union we do is MMA, but I'm not sure that's true in other agencies.
So we have a couple of minutes left, and
another question is there a way to send a mass email to all the applicants?
Yes. So you would
just select.
Go to, if you want, whatever bucket you want to send from, you could do the all, which would be, I wouldn't recommend necessarily because it may be someone in this bucket that you linked, but they never submitted an application. So typically, you'd want to use the apply, but you'd select all and then the group action.
Okay, another really good question.
Send correspondence.
Is there any training materials that you've created for the managers and supervisors?
I know Lori and Kirsten are finalizing a step-by-step guide for hiring managers, and the plan is to then have it reviewed for accessibility and then posted on the extranet next week.
Next week, okay. Can we say something about the searching for layoff lists and workers' comp?
Yes, so continue to use ResumeX for those searches. We have developed or created, which you can see, like 100 and some job openings that are not going to be, you know, posted to the public internally or externally, but those are the individual layoff lists for all of the current individuals on layoff. And so we will be, when that's ready to go, meaning when the applicants are moved, I shouldn't even say moved. We can't move anything from WebEx to Recruiting Solutions, and so we need to work with each individual on those layoff lists and have them apply by giving them a PIN. And so it's going to take a while. We have to allow the individual time to do that. So again, continue to use WebEx. You have that available to you for checking layoff lists. We'll continue to update that, and that will be your tool. And when we're ready to roll out the new layoff lists, and we have that set up, we will be providing additional information.
Okay, we're getting close. Well, the time is up, but there's a couple more questions really quick that we'll have Teresa respond to, and then we'll close the meeting. Has MMB developed how to apply instructions for applicants?
For external applicants.
How to apply?
Yeah.
Yes. So on the careers website, there's a video and
tons of written instruction, and that will be published starting Monday. So,
yep.
So it has all the new information for the new system.
Is there one more?
What was the other one, Rika, you wanted us to mention?
How are appeals handled? We quickly covered that.
So if the applicant is rejected and they get an appeal notice, is there something in the system for handling appeals?
No. We're working on adding another reason code so that you could update a status. But the notifications, it's very similar to now. It's in the notice that they get, it will say, you know, you need to contact us with the information and of why they believe they meet themselves. So nothing's really changed.
Nothing's changed. We standardized appeal language in the reject template. So do what you're doing now.
And we need to close, but there are additional questions here, and we will get back to you individually with a response to those questions.
And then I'd make one final announcement. I did notice that there are 46 draft postings in our live production site. That means, you know, what will be next week viewable potentially if you open them up, and 3 that are actually open. So we do want to encourage you to get your postings, draft postings up there, and if you look at the opening date that it's set for the 8th, you can go ahead and open them up, and it won't go to the website until the 8th of December. So certainly keep working on those postings. You've got a lot going, and we would anticipate to see, you know, traditionally we have around 200 plus postings on any given day, and right now we have 46 in draft and 3 that are open, so I would anticipate that number to go up. And if you have any questions at all, please don't hesitate to contact your agency and applicant services rep or me. All right, thank you so much for listening in. And I know we didn't have time to get to all the questions, but we will, like Rika said, follow up with you individually. Thanks, and have a great weekend.